Hey there, I'm Tyler and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to show you my favorite, in my opinion, the best method for finishing indoor furniture. This video has been brought to us by Fuji Spray. For all your finishing needs, visit fujispray.com. Today I'm going to show you everything you need to know to go from raw wood to a finished indoor piece of furniture using my favorite finishes and of course my favorite method, which is spray finishing or don't do it at all. Let's see what we can do. All right, let's take a look at what we got here. These are all waterborne finishes from General Finishes. It's the only thing I really like to spray. I don't like messing around with lacquer-based finish because of the smells and because of the fire hazards, as I typically spray out in the barn where I have a fire going if it is wintertime. My favorite is the Enduro Clear Poly, which goes over the sanding sealer. Sanding sealer can go underneath everything but the EnduroVar. That doesn't have sanding sealer underneath it. And this is actually an oil-looking water-based finish. It has an amber tint in it, and this can be brushed or sprayed and looks great on lighter woods in my opinion. Right here is actually a tinted polyurethane. General Finishes can tint pretty much any color you need and it will be at your door within 2 days. I used all of this on the kitchen build that you recently saw and a bunch of previous other furniture. We also have a pre-catalyzed lacquer, which I do like to use, although I've kind of narrowed in on this one as my favorite finish, and I've gotten really good at laying this down very, very well. Today, we're going to focus on this combination right here, and this is what I'm going to show you how to lay down like an absolute sheet of glass. We have our finishes decided on. We're going to set those to the side. We obviously know that we're going to spray finish or don't do it at all, because in my opinion, that is the best way, and you don't need the spray setup that I have. You can start at a much more entry level and get very adequate finishes. But material prep may be just as important or more so than the finish and how you actually apply that. So this is a cherry bed that I am making here, and you want to make sure your material is sanded down. I like to use a random orbit sander and go from anywhere from 120 to 240 grit, working my way through the grits to make sure you have a nice smooth surface with no swirl marks. Once you have all your sanding done, I like to use a tack cloth to clean all of the dust and debris off of the work surface. I've heard rumors of how a tack cloth isn't so good because of the turpentine that the tack cloth is soaked in, which allows you to whisk that dust off of the material. But I've never had ill effects of using a tack cloth. So that's what I like to use, and that's what I recommend. Hopefully it works out for you as well. So at this point, our sanding is done and it is time to clean up. If you have a lot of material, a shop vac and an air hose is definitely very helpful, but always finish up with your tack cloth. Now, I do want to point out that this is cherry. It's going to be a natural finish with the clear coat on top. It would be a sin to put stain on cherry, but for something like this coat stand that I am rebuilding for church, it needed some stain on there. Of course, we're using General Finishes water-based stain, which will raise the grain because of the water base in here. And you do not want to scuff sand just that stain, which has the raised grain at this point, until you put a sanding sealer on there, because you'll take the stain right off and you'll have to repair your project at that point. So that's just a side note if you're going to be using stain, but like I said, this is going to be a natural finish on this cherry. I'm going to be using my Fuji T75G, which is a gravity-fed spray gun with a 1.3 millimeter tip to spray both the sealer and the top coat. The T75G comes with this gravity-fed cup right here. If you're going to use that, you definitely want to make sure you filter your finish. This is something I didn't do until maybe a year and a half ago, and it makes a spectacular difference that you don't lay a giant turd in the middle of one of your spray patterns and mess up your finish. But I have an adapter on here which allows me to use the 3M PPS cups, which is the paint preparation system. And the big reason for the PPS cups, filter is in the lid of this thing, so you put your finish in and you are ready to go. There's very little cleanup with this system, and I can spray in any orientation because there's actually a vacuum inside here, so I can spray upside down, any orientation, and not get air bubbles. All right, we'll go ahead and get this guy ready for some sealer. Again, we're using the 1.3 millimeter tip on the Fuji, and these lids are called mixing mates. You can get it from Amazon, wherever, and they're fantastic, especially if you use the same finish quite a bit like I do. I have a couple of these lids, saves a lot of time. I don't think I'll be needing a ton of this today, so I'm only going to put in a couple ounces. And that's it. Just like that, we are ready to spray. I think it would be a given that you don't want it to be freezing cold when you spray finish, as that will affect how the finish lays down. And I found the best results to be around 60 degrees, 40% humidity. I know you can't control all that. You can use things like this accelerator to help things dry if it's super, super humid. I've sprayed as cold as like 45 degrees and then brought the material into the shop to set up and cure. And that's actually what I'm going to do today so that I don't have to heat the exterior portion where I do all of my spraying. I'll spray it, bring it into the shop to set up. I'm going to be using my Q5 Platinum to spray this. For these particular finishes, I found that having the turbine wide open and the valves wide open here as well is best, and then you control the volume of your liquid instead of the volume of air. So I'm going to go ahead and get the gun on here at this point, and we need to get rid of the air pocket that's in the PPS cup right now. So we're going to go ahead and fire it up upside down so that no liquid is flowing into the gun and get that air out of there. And I have the tip wide open at this point. As you see there, we got no liquid coming out. And there's our liquid. So now we can flip it over. As you can see here, we have sucked that air out of there, so now we can spray in any orientation. I'm going to turn off so you can hear me there. Now I'm going to crank my tip all the way down, and with the 1.3 tip in there and these particular finishes, I like to open it 1.5 turns. And I got numbers on the back of this spray gun so I can find out what's going on there. And then I will use a piece of cardboard to test my spray pattern before spraying at any of my material. I'm not going to put my mask on yet, but I do like to wear this 3M full face shield as it keeps my eyes and lungs clear, and this is the only thing that I found that doesn't fog up. If I do a respirator with goggles or glasses of some sort, it always fogs up, so this has worked best for me. What I'm doing here, I think you can see them better on an angle, is looking for a 6 to 8 inch fan pattern, which is what I like to spray with, and not a huge amount of overspray, and a nice looking oval pattern, and you can adjust the volume of the liquid and the fan width pattern on these guns. A lot of finishes go down by wet mill thickness, and this is a mill gauge right here, and I have sprayed a relatively heavy coat on this piece of poplar. And the way this thing actually works is these numbers right here correspond to the mill thickness. And what you want to look for is right below the number, not between the numbers. So right here would be 1 mil, 2 mil, and so forth. So spray heavy coat, drag this guy over your material, and as you can see right there, this is, like I said, a relatively heavy coat. So we actually are about 4 mils of thickness on this coat of finish that I laid down right here. So until you get more experience with laying down a perfect 2 to 3 mil finish naturally, this is a good way to make sure you have the right settings on your spray gun. This gate is a great example of why you spray finish, because this would be terrible to do by hand, and it will take us a couple seconds to put a coat of finish on this using the spray gun. The distance away kind of varies per finish, but you always want to make sure your gun is perpendicular to your material so that that fan pattern isn't tipped one way or the other, making the top or bottom a thicker layer of material. So you want to be perpendicular, and your distance away from the workpiece is going to vary on the volume of finish that you're putting through the gun and then the viscosity of that as well. But for this, I'll be somewhere between 6 and 8 inches away, and you want to make sure that you don't pile up a lot of material in the crevices, otherwise that material could crack as it's curing, making the finish not look so nice. The General Finishes sanding sealer is ready to sand in about an hour. I like to use a 180 grit block. This happens to be a Gator grit block, or sandpaper will work as well. and you want to knock down the grain. So if you run your hand over this right now, you'll feel it's a little bit rough, and just a quick couple swipes like so is going to knock that grain down and give you a beautiful surface when all is said and done. It only takes a few minutes, and then you got to go back with the tack cloth and clean up all that dust again. You can use the orbital sander, but you'll want to go very quickly over with 240 or maybe even higher so you don't take off all of that sealer. Sanding sealer is done. We have sanded and cleaned up the work pieces, and we are ready to go with our top coat. In my case, I'm using the Enduro Clear Poly. My recipe is 2 coats at full strength, and then for the third coat, I will mix up a cup of poly, 1 ounce of the accelerator, and this just makes it a little less viscous and lets the material flow out over our work piece a little bit more. So I just finished spraying the second coat on this piece right here, and I did sand between the coats because I had a couple of spots where the bench cookies left a little bit of a print. You don't always have to sand between coats. It's kind of up to you if you want it to be smoother. There is a time where you do have to sand between coats, and that's if you wait longer than 12 to 24 hours before putting your recoat on there. And that is because the layer below is starting to cure, and you won't get the same molecular bond between all the coats, which basically turns your multiple layers into one solid coat on top of your workpiece. So if you're waiting longer than that, you need to sand to scratch that surface and allow a good bond in the material. We are ready for our last coat, the third coat, which we are going to thin down with a little bit of General Finishes Accelerator. And this just allows a little bit more flow in the product for a glassier finish. I am going to add 8 ounces of polyurethane and 1 ounce of the accelerator. Mix it up thoroughly, let it sit for a couple of minutes, give it another mix, and then we are ready to spray. The only thing that I always like to make sure that I give the air a good old couple of shots, because you could have a little bit of accelerator at the top, which if you spray that directly on your material at first is going to be super watery and it actually doesn't have enough finish in it. So shoot it up in the air a little bit. Make sure you have the product flowing through the system as you want, and then start applying to your material. Now, once you got your beautiful glassy finish and cured up and you are super happy, what do you need to do to your spray guns to put them up on the shelf so that they're ready for the next project? You need to clean them up a little bit. You need to take care of your expensive products so they take care of you in the long run. Now, you know I am a huge fan of the 3M PPS system add-on cups right here. And the biggest reason for that is most of the time, I don't actually clean my guns. Don't tell Josh at Fuji Spray. I actually put them up on the shelf because there is a vacuum pulled in this cup. So really, the finish is not exposed to any air all the way through here to the tip of the spray gun. No finish exposed. The finish is going to last longer in here than it's actually going to last in here, because there's an air pocket on top of that pan of finish right there. So I am a huge proponent of this. I have actually had the finish in this spray gun for going on 2 months right now, sitting up on the shelf, ready to go at a trigger pulls notice. And it's really, really fantastic. And it's going to save you a ton of time in cleaning this up, because you slide the liner out, you can dump your finish back into your pan, you can throw the liner away, or you can wash it. I've washed mine for years now, and I've thrown away only a couple over that time frame. And you'll really see why that's super nice in just a second here. Now the cleaning process is the same for the T75G or the T70 gun, which just has the siphon in the cup on the bottom. The 3M PPS can go onto both of them. There's a little bit different adapter. All that good stuff is linked down in the description below. So if you have the vacuum pulled on the 3M cup, you need to make sure you pick the booger on the end right here, pull your pressurization line, and then I like to just give it a little bit of vacuum on this side to make sure we pull that bag open before we pull off the cup. Looking good right there. And then we can detach our gun, and there we go. As of right now, there is no finish in this spray gun because we just pulled it back into the cup, and there's going to be a little bit of material lining the gravity tube coming down here and out to the tip. And that's going to take us a couple of minutes to clean. Now, we have our 3M cup right here. We can pull that out, and this is where your finish is. This cup is clean. You can either dump this out and throw it away, or you can dump it out and clean the bag. It only takes a second to clean the bag. Now, what a big difference in what you have to clean here and what you would have to clean out of all of this cup, which takes a long time because there's a lot of material lining that up, or out of all of this cup, if this is the system that you are still using. Highly recommend the 3M PPS cups. If you're using the Siphon T70 gun, you'll probably have your filter in here that you'll just want to take off and rinse that out as well. Make sure everything's nice and clean. It's going to take a lot of water to clean out all the tubing, clean out the cup thoroughly, and so on. Make sure your pressure tube does not have a whole bunch of material in there. This is something that you can wash out, something that you probably want to replace every couple of months, the cheap replaceable product. Now let's show you my steps for cleaning out the spray guns. Now typically we would be inside in the sink, but we don't have any light in there. The first thing we are going to do is we're going to unscrew and remove our tip. We can set that to the side. We're going to clean that up in a minute. And then go ahead and back out our needle. Not all the way out, we just want to make sure we have lots of motion in the trigger. And then we can go ahead, turn our sink on, and we can just start running some water over there. We want to pull the trigger a bunch of times, start getting that material broken down till we get some water flow right here. You can see the material's pretty much ran out of there already, running through the siphon, running through the gravity tube right here. And then go ahead and add yourself a drip, just a drip of soap. You don't want to go overboard. Go ahead and get that flowing again. We want to get that soap down in the bottom. And then go ahead and take one of your brushes. These are the ones I always have ready to go. Go ahead and gently push it in there. We don't want to grind the tip of the brush against the bottom of the gravity tube, but go ahead, insert it down there, give it a couple twists. Go ahead and open the tip, open the gun up, and really let that water flow through. Clean all of the material out of our spray gun. You can also use the brush right now on the tip of the gun. Make sure we got that broken down. Allow plenty of water to flow through. Now we got that done. Let's go ahead and remove our needle. Take the end and the spring off. Make sure you hang on to that. Set that to the side. Pull your trigger and pull the needle out. Go ahead and rinse off the end of that as well. We should only have a very little bit of material right on the tip. And then go ahead and grab your wrench, your Fuji wrench, and we're going to go ahead righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, and remove our 1mm tip right here. It's in really good shape, but we'll go ahead and give it a rinse here in a minute. Go ahead and pull the diffuser off, and then I don't know what this is called. This is, I guess, just like an air redirect. And we do want to pay attention to this when we reassemble, but we'll get to that in a minute. So now you should not have any material right here. The only material should be flowing down the gravity tube into here, which is going right into your tip. But we can go ahead and give this a rinse right in the front as well. And then we're going to go ahead and use the brush again, just to make sure those threads are nice and clean. And then we can rinse it from the top. And right now, unless you want to do some cosmetic work, this spray gun is clean. So back to our diverter and our diffuser. That's what we're going to call them. I don't really know what they're called. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a nylon brush. I do not think this came with the Fuji kit, but this is just something that's rather gentle and cleans off just as well. If you need something a little bit more aggressive, you can go to a stainless steel brush like this. Go ahead and make sure the diffuser is clean as well. Like I said, this gun has had material in it for almost 2 months now, and you can see how clean it is. So we do want to make sure that the tip is cleaned out as well. That is where material will gunk up and potentially inside. Again, you want to make sure you don't push your brush down too deep and scratch the inside. Go ahead and insert, give this a spin. That's going to help us clean out any material that's inside. Now, Fuji also in their cleaning kit gives you these super tiny little cleaner things. They have a little bit of abrasion right here. They're not a brush. I don't really know what they are. Make sure you get one that fits the tip very well and is not going to do any damage. And you can push out any gunk material that's in there as well and just make sure that it's removed. Go ahead and give yourself a rinse. If you have a little bit more heavy debris on the outside, you can grab one of those heavier brushes that we had to make sure that's cleaned up as well. So at this point, the spray gun is clean. You can go ahead and use an air compressor to dry everything off, or you can put your thumb right over the end of the Fuji spray gun hose and use that to dry everything off. You can do a little cosmetic work as well with the brushes. Now, upon assembly, if you did take off your pressure hose, you want to make sure your check valve is oriented the right way. This is one of the biggest things that you could put on backwards, which is going to lead to your gun not functioning right at all. You want the angle of this check valve to be pointing away from your spray gun to allow the pressure to go down into the cup, up into the cup, however it's oriented, and not back into the gun. Again, check your valves right there. If you need to replace the hose here, again, that's a consumable product. So now we're going to assemble. We want to make sure our diverter is oriented properly, so we have our locating pin correct. Grab our O-ring and grab our diffuser. We can set that O-ring right on there. Flip it over, and then we want to make sure our locating pin is going to go through the hole that we just properly oriented. Don't pinch your O-ring. Make sure you have it seated all the way around. And then grab your tip or whatever tip you want to put back in here. I'm just going to reassemble with the 1mm tip. And then just go ahead and grab your Fuji wrench and give this a finger tighten. Add your tip on the end there. Now at this stage, this is a great opportunity to do what many people, including me, typically forget and add a little bit of oil to make sure you have smooth, quiet operation of your product for a long, long time. This oil comes with the Fuji cleaning kit, and you basically just want to add a little bit of oil on all the moving parts. Add a little bit on the fan control here. Give that a couple spins. And then I also want to add a dab onto the needle about where it's going to be sliding through the trigger mechanism right here. Whoops, a little more than I wanted. There we go. Put your knob back on, and you are ready for action again. And that's it. It's really not rocket science. You're ready to put this back on the shelf, put it back in your spray cart so that you're ready to go at a trigger's notice next time, and your high quality products are going to last you a high quality long time. Now, every several months, couple times a year, it's a good idea to do a higher level cleaning where you're pretty much going to do the same thing, but you're going to use something a little stronger like mineral spirits or denatured alcohol to really clean that gun. If you ever use any solvents, that's really going to help you get any of that gunk that's in the deep nook and crannies of this thing out of there. Not that there's a lot of nooks and crannies, because there's literally material running here and here on this spray gun, especially with the 3M cups. Look how quickly it took me to clean this, and you would still be rinsing out this cup if you use finish and hair right now. Well, that is a wrap. I do gotta say, this turned out spectacular. I am really, really happy with the results that I have figured out how to use and hopefully shared with you guys with this General Finishes finish combination. There are links to everything that I use down in the description below. And of course, remember, you always want to spray finish or don't do it at all. It doesn't always have to be that way, but definitely better results. You can brush some of these finishes, not necessarily this one, but General Finishes has products that you can apply by hand as well. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and it helped some of you out. If it did, please hammer that thumbs up button as it helps us out and gets this video in front of more eyes. I'm DIYTyler, and you guys have a good one.